and boy, was he able to brush off that first play.
Certainly was. It was an impressive outing for young Sam Darnold. And, guys, I've spent the last 2 years calling games of his at USC, and it's more the same. I mean, this kid he really is a breath of fresh air. He is one of the most grounded individuals that I've seen come out of college football in quite some time. He's not buying into the hype. Everybody wants to make him, the next coming since Joe Namath, especially in the Big Apple. But he just seems to go about his business. He doesn't take himself too seriously. His teammates love him already after one game, and he's got the skill set certainly to exceed in the NFL. And it was a real pleasure to call his first game and watch him kind of grow, especially after the way the first throw ended up.
So taking numbers out of this, he was 16-21 for 198 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. What are the positive? What do you see of him in the huddle, in the pocket, outside the pocket, the intangibles that you like?
Yeah, Mike, I think, you always wonder, no matter how talented a guy is, you always wonder when the lights come on, and especially your first start on Monday Night Football, how's he going to react when the real bullets fly? And the stage wasn't too big for him. That was very clear. And you could tell after the first throw, he came back to the sideline. He didn't put his head down. He didn't go sulk on the bench. He got right back in there and came out and started firing. Now, certainly the things that he needs to work on, he has a unique ability to extend plays, and he reminds me a lot of Brett Favre. And I know that's not a fair comparison, but that's who he reminds me of, the way that he has a short memory. If he makes a mistake, he's not going to go in the tank. He will extend plays. He thinks he can make any throw on the field. And he just gets the team, the other 10 guys on the field with him to believe that somehow, some way they're going to make a play to win the game. And that's not something you can teach. So I think that's why the Jets organization is 150% behind this young kid.
And Brian, more than anybody else, as our NFL analyst Brian Griese joins us, you would know what it's like to make that debut on Monday night, because your first start was on a Monday night game for the Denver Broncos, right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Trey. We lost.
No, I'm just saying. So you know what he had to deal with at a very young age. So that makes it even maybe a little bit more impressive.
There's no question. It was about 20 years ago. I had to start against the Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino, and I remember going out there. And first of all, I was just trying to keep my pregame meal down, but I remember going out on the field. And every single series, I felt like we had to score a touchdown because it's Dan Marino on the other side, and they scored 38 points in that game. So it was an experience I'll never forget. Sam will never forget last night. Certainly, everybody says, what's your welcome to the NFL moment? And now Sam Darnold will have an opportunity to tell his story about throwing an interception return for a touchdown, just like Brett Favre did on his first throw in the NFL. But he can follow it up and say, we won the game, and that'll be a great story for him.
Talking to ESPN NFL analyst Brian Griese, was on the call for Monday Night Football last night, and certainly Sam Darnold is going to be the headline, but I think the bulk of the story is this Jets team around him. How does play at that position where the Jets have really struggled for a while benefit the rest of this team that clearly played loose, intense, however you want to put it, all throughout the night?
You had a chance to see how a quarterback can influence the rest of a team. I mean, everybody, asks, so how does a quarterback affect, the defense, the special teams? But you saw a team that was completely different than a year ago, a team that won 5 games last year, but really didn't believe that they could win every single game. And Josh McCown played well. I mean, he's a good football player and deserved, the accolades that he got last year, but you could just see a different mindset, a different belief from the Jets. Now, granted, it was one game. We're not going to overreact. We know which division they play in and who's at the top of that division. But you look at the way the Buffalo Bills played on Sunday, the Miami Dolphins, and I don't think you could say that the Jets are certainly worse than those teams. So they're going to have an opportunity to certainly compete in a much different way than they did a year ago.
Brian Griese with us, our NFL analyst, called the Monday night game between the Lions and the Jets, the debut of Sam Darnold. And speaking of that defense, Brian, Jamal Adams and others sort of made it pretty clear that they knew what was coming from the Detroit Lions from either scouting or the Lions not changing up their calls. What did you make of them saying, hey, we knew a lot of the plays that they were trying to run?
Yeah, I never really buy much into that, to be honest with you, Trey. I mean, I think Jamal Adams is a great player. I'm really excited to see him come back in his second year and what he can do. He reminds me a lot of Brian Dawkins, the way he plays the run, supports at the line of scrimmage. And then in the secondary, they've got some talent now. They added Tremaine Johnson, who I think was a big piece for them. So with Mo Claiborne on the other side, that's something that they can build around. And then if they get that pass rush, that's been the real Achilles heel for the New York Jets, is to get some help for Leonard Williams from a pass rush situation. They draft Nate Shepard, a young kid out of Fort Hays State, of all places, who played well last night. They get Avery Williamson at Mike linebacker. So they have some pieces. But the thing about the Jets is they're in a rebuild. They're in a second year of a rebuild. Todd Bowles, talking with him, that's very clear what they're trying to accomplish. And I think they won the sweepstakes, right? Not getting Kirk Cousins and having to pay $90 million guaranteed. If you remember back, they were the ones that offered $90 million. The Vikings offered $84. And so they missed that, and then they regroup with Plan B, and then they end up paying Sam Darnold $30 million over 4 years, and they can go spend that money in free agency to get guys like Tremaine Johnson. And after this year, guys, they'll have $98 million in cap space to go out and get more pieces on offense. So the Jets are building something that I think is going to be even more impressive as the next years